Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And let's just get right into it, okay? Because I think we've heard a lot about it in the past few days. People have talked about it on social media. Many people have slammed the media for very blatantly fabricating the news, showing old images of different countries and saying that, oh, this is Iran. First of all, let's just put it out there in a layman's perspective, okay? We're not going to go deep into the political analysis. We're not going to go into current affairs. We're not going to go into the history of everything. We're just going to touch on the history, and even if we do look into or analyze the whole situation, we'll do it in a layman's point of view. So let's begin with the fact that everybody knows that in Iran, there have been at least three attempts in the recent past. There have been at least three failed attempts by the US to cause a revolution. Yeah, a revolution in Iran. And every single time they were caught, their so-called journalists who were actually agents and spies sent to target the regime. They were hanged or they were given the death sentence, whatever you like to call it. And they were gotten rid of. And America obviously now, as soon as America just now invaded Venezuela, everybody knew Iran was next. And everybody knows that it's all about the oil. All these countries are countries that are rich in resources. These are countries that America has been trying to sanction so that they should be pressured to buckle down and surrender in front of the US and in front of the Zionist lobbies and the Zionist policies. But because these countries refused and these countries preferred to work with China, and as we know, Venezuela was striking a deal with China, and so the president got kidnapped. And then we all knew that now next in turn was Iran, because Iran too was having certain deals with China. And all of these deals are pertaining to oil, as we know. And America goes mad over oil. That too we know. The reason why Nigeria has been hit too, I mean, come on, when I lived in Nigeria, the civil wars that hit Nigeria in the 80s, again, who was behind it? The US. Yeah, the US of A. Remember, as I told you, remember who the villains are in real life. In real life, the European governments, the Western governments, the American government, the Israelis, these are the real villains. The reason they've been brainwashing their people into thinking that they're heroes in their fiction movies is, so that there should always be this lingering doubt. So if 67% of the American population has a problem with the 9/11 charade, and they believe that, yes, this was a false flag, they've been shut down, through misinformation, through disinformation, or being called conspiracy theorists, and again, once again, there have been teaching moments where the 9/11 issue has been shoved against everybody's face, very conveniently making them forget that they actually saw the live news. We all saw the live news footage, okay, as it unrolled in front of us. We all saw it. And we all remember, those of us who've seen it, we do remember what the actual news was, how they verified that these were American drones, not commercial flights, and how they verified that these were demolishing materials used and demolishing equipment was found underground. So all these, the real news, in other words, was then suddenly backtracked and refuted, and different stories were made up. So the same shit has been pulled off over and over again. It was pulled off in Vietnam, and then when they penetrated Cambodia, despite the fact that they claimed that they didn't and it was illegal. When they bombed Hiroshima again, God knows what lies they fabricated for that, Again, who's writing history here? We should know by now what history really is all about and what it means and who's the writer, who's the author of history. So, yeah, so now coming down to Iran at this point. First of all, I'll have you know that right before Iran made the wise decision to shut down their internet, because the US and the Zionists were literally infiltrating they were infiltrating the social media, they were infiltrating their media, they were infiltrating basically their internet, in other words, their networking, so that they could again spread misinformation and disinformation. For example, that whole water shortage thing. Now here's a funny thing. The Iranians did not even know that there was a water shortage. They were extremely surprised, and they found that hilarious that the West was telling them that they had a water shortage, number one. And again, I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about people living in Iran with whom I have been in contact, people who I know personally. And not only are they just people living in Iran, but these are people who actually know what's going on because they happen to be journalists. Okay, so they were like, okay, so we don't get this with this water shortage thing. We're hearing it for the first time. How do you people know something that we living here do not know? Okay, number two, when this whole Iran protest thing began and the whole fabrication, the false news began, well, it is thankfully there were some netizens who immediately picked up on the fake images and they pointed it out. They were like, "Oh God, these are old images, and some of them are not even from Iran. They're from Egypt or they're from other countries. And what are you trying to pull here? This protest, this is not real." And so again, from Iran, many people, before the internet was shut down, many people came up and said, "This is fake. This is all false news." And again, people I knew from Iran, again, said the same thing. They were like, this is fake. This is all false. There are no protests going on in Iran at all. And then we found out that the so-called alleged protest was again a selected number of people who again nobody knew, nobody recognized. So aka again you've got agents, because we already know that the Americans and Israelis have infiltrated Iran. We already know that. And the fact that they were using their agents and their spies to create a facade of a protest, and they are the ones who are doing it. They're the one. In other words, they're staging a fake protest. Because again, as I said, there have been protests going on in Pakistan for 3 years. Why is it that the Western media never covered it? Why is it that the American president never threatened the army chief of Pakistan or the government of Pakistan for being illegal and for going against the people and for killing their people and for trying to stop the protests? Why is it that suddenly the protests in Iran, which aren't even real, are so important that Trump feels the need to intervene? But he never felt the need to intervene despite the fact that the Pakistani citizens abroad, the overseas American Pakistanis abroad, literally asked him to. They asked him to intervene and, to help oust. But obviously, which I, again, remember I told you, I was the only one that said this before all of your professional journalists and your analysts and your veterans. I said this, that Trump is not going to speak up for Imran Khan because Trump is essentially the mouthpiece of the establishment of the Zionist lobby. And this time, the only way he could come back and complete his term was if he did not deviate, if he did not turn rogue. And I told you that this time you will not see him going rogue. So here you are. What happened to his anti-war policies? He still has to fight with Iran now because that is the establishment's, the policy. He cannot go rogue. He has to follow the Zionist lobbies because he cannot go rogue. So there you are. So at this point now, we have Trump literally lying through his teeth and using the media. Like the Italian media, people from Italy have told me that the Italian media actually showed 16-year-old image, or in fact, 16-year-old images of Egypt. Yeah, of the chaos that happened 16 years ago in Egypt. They showed that, they had the guts to show that and claim that this was Iran. And people were like, what the frack? Who are you fooling here? So, I mean, imagine the height through which and the lengths through which they're going. And another thing I find really, really funny is how do people easily believe that Muslim extremists, for example, the 9/11 charade and all, how do people easily believe that Muslim extremists will go and damage mosques or kill people who are praying? This is inherently the trait of a non-Muslim. In fact, the minute you say that a mosque has been burnt or that people who are praying have been killed or a religious site has been damaged, you know that it's a non-Muslim behind it, because no Muslim, especially a fanatic Muslim, would kill everybody but not let an inch of dirt, not even an inch of dirt, not even a speck of dirt, touch the walls of a mosque. Let me tell you this. That is how you know that person is a fanatic. okay? Because he will do anything and everything to preserve any and every monument and any and every location and any and every person that is tied down to religion or a religious ritual or a religious act. So if you hear that something has happened to a mosque, or if you hear something has happened to people who are praying, or if you hear that Muslims are killed, or if you, then you know that it's not Muslims behind it. You know that it's the Zionists. You know it's the Americans. It's just, it's understood. It's understood. Even a fool will ask you this question. Even a 6-year-old will ask you, "Oh, excuse me, aren't they Muslims? So how are Muslims going into mosques and damaging the mosque? How are Muslims doing anything to the Quran? How are Muslims doing anything to other Muslims who are praying? Or in general, how are Muslims going against Muslims if they're fighting for Islam?" And then they try to whip up these stories. "Oh, this is the whole point of being a fanatic, because when you're no, 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 you can't play that game here. We have to call a spade a spade. We have to put a full stop to this nonsense." So, yeah, you suddenly hear that Al Rasul Mosque is set ablaze, and every single person underneath that news headline, every single person commented the exact same thing that I did as well. That, "Oh, it's the Zionists. Oh, it's the Americans." It was so obvious. It's so obvious. Who else would damage something that is so precious to Muslims than a non-Muslim who is the enemy of Muslims? Yeah, let's just get down to brass tacks, okay? Let's just call a spade again. It is a fact. It is a fact, and it is in the Quran, that the Christians and the Jews will never be your friends. We're talking political here. Even in the context in the Quran was also political. The Quran is not talking about individuals or groups of people, right? The Quran is talking about politically, about the political affairs, about the current affairs, about having treaties with each other, about having deals with each other as politicians, as leaders, as from one country to another country. So this is a completely political context, and it is true. As we can see, we've been seeing it for decades. Look at Palestine. Look at Myanmar, what they did to the Rohingya Muslims. Look at Kashmir in India. Look at Afghanistan, again, the Americans and the British and the Russians. Look at what they've been doing. I mean, just look around you. Everywhere you will see that the Muslims have always been victims of non-Muslims with their political conspiracies and with their misinformation and disinformation, while they're the ones going ahead committing the exact same act of terror that they're blaming their victims to have committed. Talk about making up bullshit. Talk about B-grade scripting. Seriously, this was literally a B-grade scripting going on even right now. And anybody who allows himself to be a fool and who allows himself to be fooled by this, he deserves to be fooled for the rest of his life. Seriously, he doesn't deserve to get anything right in his life. It's a fact here. And another thing that is so hilarious is, America announcing that it has got a Doomsday plane that it has kept hidden for decades since the whole nuclear thing. And, they've prepared for the nuclear war. And now they're sending warning messages to Iran by showcasing and displaying their Doomsday plane, that it can be suspended in the air for days. Like, you do realize that you need a fueling point. And you do realize that there is no fueling point up in the air. You still have to come down to the ground to refuel. Okay, and then you're saying that you can command your army from up in the air because you are able to survive the Doomsday. Okay, you do realize with Doomsday, you're talking about nuclear bombs or atomic bombs, right? So when you bomb the bejesus out of a land, the whole point, again, remember Hiroshima in case. The whole point is that the effects reach far and wide. First of all, who is going to make sure that your fueling point is going to stay intact after a bomb is blasted? Your people are not going to be alive because they're not the ones suspended in air. only the president and the chosen few are going to be suspended in the air. But that means that the president and his chosen few do not give a frack about the people, the people of his country. When you don't have people, then what are you going to rule? What can a bunch of people without any resources do? Oh, you're trying to claim you have resources again. If bombs are exploded in strategic points of America, there will be nothing left for you to claim or to use, no resources, unless that is why you're basically trying to steal Greenland, because you want that to be able to land on Greenland and then use its resources. And obviously, that is why you have stolen Pakistan already. You have literally taken over Pakistan and invaded Pakistan on a political basis. And so, yeah, you're going to use the Pakistani army. Yes, that you can say. But if you're thinking, but again, think again. If the Pakistan, because the Pakistani army are known to turn their backs on anybody who's no longer useful to them. So tell me, suppose the Pakistani army decides that, oh, Trump is up there in the air, everything else has been exploded till kingdom comes. He doesn't even know where he's going to get his fuel from. Nobody knows if he will actually even reach his fueling point on time or not. Why should we save his ass? Let's just join the other party. Then what are you going to do? I mean, look, what is it that you are showing off here? As a layman's point of view here, we're just putting it out there, okay? At the layman's point of view, you need a place to land. How can you land in a place that has been bombed? Number one. Again, even if you manage to land on a bombed place safely, how are you sure that the place where you're supposed to get your fuel is intact? Especially if somebody can find out, especially since you've showcased and displayed your plane, I'm sure now your enemies are going to find out all your fueling points and make sure that at least the ones nearest to you are going to be bombed too. Right? I mean, that's the first. I'm a layman, and that's the first thing that I thought. Secondly, again, what army are you going to command in a debris of land? Like what? Like, let's be practical here, okay? I don't care what you, even if you think that, oh, you're going to now argue with me that no, we have our allies, we have our NATO allies, and we have the Israelis, and we have the British, and we have the Italians, and yeah, we have the French. Yeah, okay, but again, there's so much chaos in Europe. Who's to say that Europe will also not get bombed? Again, as I said, if you are so sure that you have tied up your enemy and trussed them up like chickens, right? I mean, that's basically what you are assuming, right? That is what you're trying to tell the world, is that the people who you have in your hands will remain in your hands. So even if you lose your whole country, even if you lose your massive population, it doesn't matter to you. So these are your priorities. Your people in America are not your priority. Your priority are recolonization of the world, and it doesn't matter because America too was actually a colony, so it doesn't matter because you're here on a larger mission to use those army outfits that you have been financing through the decades to actually be there at that point in time to serve your purpose and to be able to maintain your colonies, which you are fighting for right now at the moment, basically fighting to regain, which, as I've said 1,000 times, you never really lost as far as you're concerned, because you have been interfering with them constantly to make sure that they're still under your control. And that is why, with such confidence, you have decided that it is time to go all out, and it is time to openly, blatantly, shamelessly parade and basically just announce to the world that, yeah, okay, it's time to openly work on recolonizing the whole world, that one world order that you've been saying for what, almost a century. So yeah, I'm here sitting looking at the whole charade unfold. But you know what, despite all your arrangements, I can tell you, if you knew human nature, you would know that when push comes to shove, People will always look at their own benefit. If they see that you're no longer of any, if you are no longer in a position to do them harm or to benefit them, they will turn their backs on you. So I think this is just a childish, very immature, act that you're saying, oh, we have a doomsday plane. Again, practical, please, let's be practical. It doesn't even make sense. And what? Maximum you would be able to suspend in the air for a week. After that, what's going to happen? You have to land somewhere. And who's to say that by then, any place that you choose to land on would be a place of your death? Because your enemy will have surrounded that place or will have rigged that place, and they're just waiting for you to land. So then you will have no choice but to stay in the air. And then again, how long will you live when you're staying in the air? Stop being such stupid fools. Seriously. This is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.